Something is happening in plain sight that everyone sees but refuses to acknowledge. Walk into any upscale restaurant, any cultural event, any place where people actually have their lives together, and you'll notice a pattern so consistent it can't be coincidence. Young women, attractive women, accomplished women, sitting across from men 15, 20, sometimes 30 years older. Not occasionally, constantly, and the internet loses its mind. Gold digger, daddy issues, power imbalance, predator. The labels fly fast because labels are easier than truth. Labels let you dismiss what you don't want to understand. But here's what nobody wants to admit. These women aren't victims. They're not confused. They're not being manipulated. They're making a choice, a rational choice. And that choice reveals something devastating about modern masculinity. Young women are gravitating toward older men at unprecedented rates. And it has nothing to do with money, status, or some psychological damage that needs fixing. It has everything to do with the fact that most young men today never actually become men. They just get older. There's a difference. A massive difference. And women feel that difference in their bones before they can even articulate it. Let me be clear about what this isn't. This isn't about justifying predatory behavior. This isn't about celebrating manipulation. This isn't about men using age as a weapon of control. Those dynamics exist and they're disgusting. But they're not what we're talking about here. We're talking about something far more fundamental. We're talking about the collapse of masculine development in an entire generation of men, and how that collapse has created a vacuum that women are trying to fill by seeking men who actually finish the process of becoming. You want to know why she's attracted to him? It's not the gray hair. It's not the wrinkles. It's not even the resources, though those help. It's the calm. It's the certainty. It's the feeling she gets when she's around him that she never gets with men her own age. The feeling that someone actually knows what they're doing, that someone has answers instead of questions, that someone can hold frame when the world is chaos. Most men spend their 20s confused, their 30s conflicted, their 40s finally figuring out who they are. By the time they hit 50, if they've done the work, if they haven't wasted those decades chasing validation or numbing themselves, they've become something rare, something women crave. Not men with age, men with presence. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Age doesn't automatically create value. I've met 60-year-old boys, men who've accumulated years like dust but never developed depth. Men who react like teenagers when challenged. Men who still seek external validation like their life depends on it. Men who panic when tested. Age gave them nothing because they gave age nothing to work with. The men who attract younger women aren't attractive because of their age. They're attractive despite their age. They spent those years building something that youth can't fake: emotional stability, self-knowledge, direction. The ability to make decisions without spiraling into anxiety, the capacity to lead without controlling, the strength to be present without being needy. Think about what young women experience with men their own age. Inconsistency. One week he's all in, the next he's distant. One day he's confident, the next he's fishing for reassurance. One moment he's making plans, the next he's canceling because something better might come up. It's exhausting. It's unstable. It's dating someone who doesn't know who they are or what they want. Now, compare that to a man who spent 20 years figuring himself out, who knows his values and lives by them, who makes decisions and stands by them, who doesn't need her validation because he's already validated himself through decades of effort, who can look at her drama, her tests, her emotional storms, and remain absolutely unmoved, not cold, not distant, just solid, like a mountain that doesn't care about the weather. Women don't connect with potential. They connect with certainty. A 25-year-old man full of potential is still just potential. He might become something great. He might not. He's a lottery ticket. A 45-year-old man who's done the work isn't potential anymore. He's proof. He's evidence. He's already become what she hopes the younger guy might eventually be. This is about polarity. Masculine and feminine energy exist in opposition, and that opposition creates attraction. When masculine energy is weak, confused, reactive, the feminine can't rest into it. She can't surrender to it. She can't trust it. So she stays in her masculine, planning, controlling, leading, and she hates it. Because deep in her biology, deeper than any ideology or social programming, she wants to feel feminine. And she can only feel feminine when masculine energy is strong enough to hold space for it. The older man who's developed real masculine presence doesn't just allow her to be feminine. He demands it. Not through words, through being. His calm creates space for her emotion. His direction creates space for her flow. His strength creates space for her softness. And suddenly, she feels like a woman in a way she never has with men her age, who are still figuring out what masculinity even means. Young men are losing ground, not because they're young. They're losing ground because they've been raised in a culture that told them masculinity is toxic, that leadership is oppression, that strength is violence, that direction is control. So they became passive, agreeable, hesitant, apologetic for existing. And women run from that energy like it's poison, because to a woman's biological programming, that energy signals danger. Not physical danger, survival danger. A man who can't lead himself definitely can't protect and provide for a family. I remember this conversation at a coffee shop. 3 women in their late 20s talking about their dating lives. One mentions going out with a 42-year-old surgeon. Her friends immediately assume the worst. She must be after his money. He must be manipulating her. The relationship must be unbalanced. She laughs and says something that silenced the table. He's the first man I've dated who isn't constantly asking me what I think he should do with his life. He already knows. That's the most attractive thing I've ever experienced. Think about that. The most attractive thing. Not his looks, not his status, not his resources. The fact that he already knows. He's not performing confidence. He has confidence. He's not pretending to have direction. He has direction. He's not acting like a man. He is a man. This is what older men offer when they've used their time wisely. They offer completion. They offer the finished product. They offer proof that masculinity isn't toxic, it's essential. That leadership isn't oppression, it's service. That strength isn't violence, it's protection. Young women raised in a world that demonized these qualities finally encounter them in flesh and blood and realize they've been lied to their entire lives. But here's where responsibility enters. The older man who attracts younger women carries a massive ethical burden, because with that attraction comes power, and power can be used to build or destroy. The man with real masculine development understands this. He becomes a guide, not an owner, a teacher, not a controller, a leader, not a dictator. He knows his role isn't to dominate her youth and energy. It's to help her develop her own strength while providing a stable foundation for that development. The toxic version of this dynamic, and it exists everywhere, is when the older man uses age as a weapon. When he positions himself as superior rather than supportive. When he treats her like a possession rather than a partner. When he leverages her relative inexperience to manipulate and control rather than guide and protect. This isn't masculinity. This is predation wearing masculinity's mask, and it destroys both people involved. Real masculine leadership in this context looks like this. He makes decisions but considers her input. He leads but doesn't control. He teaches but doesn't condescend. He's firm but not rigid. He holds frame but doesn't crush her spirit. He shows her what healthy masculine energy looks like through demonstration, not declaration. through being, not talking about being. And what does he receive in return? Something most men his age have forgotten exists: energy. Real energy. Not the fake energy of youth pretending to be alive. Real vitality, real enthusiasm, real optimism, real belief that life still holds beauty and adventure and meaning. She reminds him that he's not just existing, he's living, that his story isn't over, that his best chapters might still be ahead. She offers him renewal. Not because she's young, because she hasn't been ground down by decades of disappointment and compromise and settling. She still believes in possibility. She still has fire. And that fire, when it meets his foundation, creates something neither could create alone. He provides the structure. She provides the energy. Together, they build something that transcends the age gap entirely. But this exchange only works when both people are conscious of what they're bringing and what they're receiving. When the man thinks he's just entitled to her youth and beauty because he's older and established, it falls apart. When she thinks she's entitled to his resources and status without bringing anything but physical presence, it falls apart. The successful version of this dynamic is when both recognize the exchange and honor it. There's a pattern I've observed repeatedly. The older man who attracts quality younger women isn't usually the loud one. He's not the one posting photos of his wealth online. He's not the one bragging about his achievements. He's quiet, confident, unimpressed with himself and everyone else. He's done enough that he doesn't need to prove anything. He's lived enough that he doesn't need to convince anyone. His presence speaks. His actions speak. His being speaks. Everything else is noise. Compare this to the young man desperately trying to appear successful, confident, established. Renting cars he can't afford for Instagram photos. Talking about future plans that never materialize. Creating the appearance of having it together while internally being a disaster. Women see through this instantly. Because women aren't looking at what you're showing them. They're feeling who you are beneath the performance. And no performance can mask the absence of real development. The tragedy is how many men hear this and think the answer is to fake being older, to act more serious, to pretend they have their shit together. That's not the answer. The answer is to actually do the work of becoming, to spend years, not months, building real skills, real knowledge, real emotional stability, to face your demons instead of running from them, to develop genuine self-awareness instead of collecting self-help platitudes, to become dangerous in the way that makes you safe, strong enough that you don't need to prove your strength. Here's where this gets dark. When the older man's attraction to younger women comes from ego rather than genuine connection, everything inverts. He's no longer seeking partnership. He's seeking validation. He's not attracted to her energy. He's attracted to what dating her says about him. She becomes a trophy, an achievement, proof he's still got it. And she feels that. She feels being used as a mirror for his insecurity. And eventually, she leaves. The danger multiplies when he uses age-based authority to shut down her growth, when he positions himself as the wise one who always knows better, when he dismisses her perspective because she's younger and therefore must be wrong, when he creates dependency rather than fostering her development. This is abuse disguised as guidance, control disguised as leadership, and it destroys the very polarity that created attraction in the first place. Because here's the truth about polarity. It requires two whole people. Masculine energy that's insecure isn't masculine. It's weakness wearing masculine's costume. And feminine energy that's been crushed into submission isn't feminine. It's survival mode. Real polarity happens when two strong forces meet and create something through their interaction. When one person dominates the other into weakness, polarity dies, and with it, attraction dies. So when I see older men bragging about dating younger women as some kind of achievement, I know immediately they've missed the point. The age gap isn't the achievement. The development of self that makes the age gap irrelevant is the achievement. Any man with resources can attract a young woman temporarily. Only a man with real masculine depth can keep her respect long-term, and respect is what turns attraction into something that lasts. Now here's the brutal truth you need to hear. If younger women aren't seeing you as an option, and you're an older man, it's not because of your age. Age is not your problem. Your problem is that you spent those years existing instead of becoming. You aged without maturing. You accumulated time without developing depth. You got older without getting stronger, wiser, more certain, more directed. You can be 50 with the emotional maturity of a teenager. You can be 60 and still seeking external validation like a child. You can be 70 and still reacting to tests like you're in middle school. Age proves nothing. Development proves everything. And development requires work. Conscious, painful, ongoing work on yourself that most men refuse to do, because it's easier to blame women for having impossible standards than to admit you never met the possible ones. The question isn't why do younger women prefer older men? The question is, what did those older men do with their time that you didn't? They built something. They faced something. They overcame something. They became something. While you were complaining about women, about society, about how hard everything is, they were in the gym, in therapy, in silence, in the hard work of transformation. They were becoming men while you were becoming older boys. And you can see this difference instantly. The man who's done the work doesn't need to announce it, doesn't need to prove it, doesn't need to convince anyone. He walks into a room and the frame shifts. Not because he demands attention, because he commands respect through simple presence. Because he's integrated, because he's whole, because he's finished the work of becoming that most men never even start. This is what younger women respond to, not the age, the integration, not the years, the wholeness, not the gray hair, the gravity. The sense that this is a person who's been through fire and came out steel instead of ash. This is someone who won't crumble under pressure, won't break under testing, won't dissolve when chaos comes. This is someone who can be trusted with her vulnerability because he's already proven he can handle his own. But here's what most men miss. You can't fast-track this. You can't fake it until you make it. You can't watch a few videos and suddenly embody decades of development. Real masculine presence comes from real masculine work. Years of facing your fears, years of failing and learning, years of being tested and passing, years of building discipline, years of developing competence, years of earning your own respect before expecting anyone else's. The younger women who seek older men aren't looking for sugar daddies. They're looking for grown men, men who act like men instead of boys with money, men who lead with presence instead of pressure, men who create safety through strength instead of security through control, men who've done the internal work that makes external validation irrelevant. And if you're sitting there thinking this is unfair, that women should appreciate you for who you are right now without all this development, you've already lost. Because that's exactly the mindset that keeps you stuck. That's exactly the victim mentality that repels feminine energy. That's exactly the weakness disguised as fairness that makes women run toward men who understand that becoming is not optional, it's essential. The older man who successfully attracts younger women isn't trying to attract them at all. He's focused on his mission, his purpose, his development. The attraction is a side effect of his presence, not the goal of his performance. He's not chasing youth. He's living his life at such a level that youth wants to be part of it. That's the difference between predation and polarity. Predation chases, polarity attracts. So the real question you need to ask yourself isn't, why are younger women attracted to older men? The real question is, what kind of man am I becoming while time passes? Are you using these years to build real depth, Real strength? Real certainty? Or are you just accumulating age like dust on a shelf, getting bitter about women who recognize you haven't become anything worth choosing? Because here's the final truth. Women don't choose age, they choose development. They don't choose years, they choose wisdom. They don't choose older, they choose stronger. And if you've been getting older without getting stronger, complaining about women's preferences instead of examining your own development, wondering why youth doesn't see your value, the answer is simple and devastating. You have no value to see, not yet, because you never did the work that creates it. You never faced the fire that forges it. You never walked the path that proves it. You just waited for time to do what only conscious effort can accomplish. And time alone accomplishes nothing but aging. Becoming requires intention, requires sacrifice, requires the willingness to die to who you were, so you can be born as who you're meant to become. Weak men age complaining. Strong men age leading. The choice has always been yours. The question is whether you'll make it before time runs out. Before the years you wasted wondering why women don't want you become years you can't get back. Before you become the bitter old man who blames women for standards you never tried to meet, rather than the integrated man whose very presence makes age irrelevant. The door is open, the path is clear, the work is waiting, but nobody can walk it for you. Nobody can become for you. And women, young or old, will always choose the man who walked the path over the man who stood at the entrance, complaining about how far it is. I want to hear from you. What moment made you realize age means nothing without development? When did you understand that becoming matters more than existing? Share your story in the comments. Let other men know they're not alone in choosing growth over comfort. Your experience might be exactly what someone needs to hear to finally start the work.